Hello and good morning. Welcome to Matcha Mornings with Diane. I am your host, Diane. I am a dancer, performing artist based in New York City, and welcome to my podcast where I talk about all things mindfulness, life in New York as a performing artist, creativity, art, and everything in between. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my podcast. Hello, good morning. Welcome to another episode of Matcha Mornings with Diane. Well, actually, it's already afternoon as I am recording this. I am feeling at peace and calm right now because it's been quite a slow past few weeks for me, but I had a really busy March. I did a heels intensive, and on top of that, I performed in my very first heels piece. So it was a really chaotic month, but it was so life-changing. And I think there was no better way for me to start this new chapter of me as a professional dancer and professional dance artist than being able to dance that much and to just be surrounded by amazing people, amazing community. There was nothing that I wanted more than to dance and just be around amazing people who love the craft just as much as I do. Also, just be in a space where I felt like I could truly be myself. There was just like something about March that I felt like I was broken open, and I didn't even realize that maybe there were still parts of me when I was dancing that I felt the need to hide. And March, I think it was just such a different and beautiful experience to be able to let myself just be in this art form and to also just be fully myself in these spaces with other amazing dancers. And yeah, it was just like so heartwarming for me to be able to experience that. I didn't even think that I was looking for that kind of experience until I was actually in it. So March was a lot of beautiful things, but it truly was fulfilling in every way that I can think of. Now that March has come to an end, now that things are kind of in a slow pace at the moment, I will not lie and say that I have been struggling with how slow things have been. And I know this about myself too, that normally the slow seasons kind of scare me because I think so much of my life I have spent really just chasing so many things. Many parts of my journey, I was always in a rush, and there's always just like this expectation of things happening by this time, just really putting like that kind of deadline that puts so much pressure in me and in my journey that when things just like slow down, it is hard for me to not do anything. Or, well, it's okay to actually still do something during the slow seasons. Like, I am not saying that we shouldn't do anything. There are moments, of course, where I know it is necessary for me to just like rot on my couch, especially after a physically grueling and intense month of dance. Of course, I know that I need those days to really just like do nothing and probably just watch a TV series and let my body recover, because again, it is not normal for my body to be performing at that level every single day, 100% every single day. My body just, it needs to recover. The other part of slower seasons is that I know that they teach me so much about being present and also being patient enough to see things through without having to constantly ask for some sort of reassurance whether I'm actually on the right path or if I'm doing things the right way. I think so much of the slower seasons really ask me to be with myself in the moment and to be with myself throughout discomfort. I know that my personality in general, I am pretty much an optimistic person. Like most of the time, I am a half glass full type of person that I know that it's still a struggle for me to meet my shadows sometimes and to sit in the discomfort, especially when, that discomfort might actually just be boredom. I think just being able to accept and embrace who I am when nothing much is happening yet, when things aren't coming to fruition yet from the actions that I have been taking. So, besides patience, I know that the slower seasons are for me to really appreciate the parts of my journey that don't necessarily look glamorous, because we all know that life isn't always going to be about the highs. Truly, I don't think we can ever appreciate the highs and, like the blissful and magical moments in our lives if we can't even appreciate the present moment, if we can't even appreciate who we are right now. I did not even know this about myself, that, oh yeah, maybe even in the past few years, there was like so much of me that felt like I had to be a certain person in order for me to be accepted. Well, not just really accepted by others, but for me to even accept myself. Because it always really starts with the self, as cliche as that sounds. But I was like, oh yeah, like maybe the reason why I am constantly seeking some sort of reassurance from others, from external forces, is that it is still challenging for me to actually accept who I am right now without feeling like I have to fix myself, that I don't actually have to be a certain person in order for me to already be worthy and for someone to actually be loved already. Right? That's so silly, but I was like, it's actually not the fact that I am asking people to accept me and to love me, but I probably don't even love myself as much yet, because it seems like I can only love and accept myself when I am a certain way. Ooh, I didn't even think I was going to say that. For me, that was really, really confronting. And now that is still something that I am constantly working on. And I think a lot of us are, because I don't think we realize that sometimes we are actually just like escaping ourselves. We are escaping the discomfort because sometimes it's a lot easier to chase the highs rather than like sit in the discomfort of who we are and be able to love that part of us, and also know that there is still so much of our journey that we have yet to see. And that is also a beautiful nuance, right? But as humans, we know that we just don't like being uncomfortable. And so I know that the slower seasons truly are for me to be able to meet myself a little deeper and to really be okay with who I am, especially during the periods when I feel like I'm not accomplishing anything, and to appreciate who I am at the core and to appreciate all sides of me, like not just the side of me that loves to be out there, that, loves things that will basically bring me so much joy and to be able to connect and interact with people. But even during the moments when, yeah, I do not feel like myself, or moments when I'm actually just really impatient, I just really need to accept that part of me too. And I know that when I can accept that part of me, I can just be more myself in all the spaces that I enter. And it also helps me to be able to appreciate people on a deeper level as well. I don't know. I guess it's just all about that saying, oh, people can only meet you as deeply as they have met. That is what the slower seasons are teaching me. Other than that, I think it's also learning to experiment and explore what a slower season looks like for me. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not going to do anything, because as humans, we also have to be in motion of some sort. And I know for myself too that I have so much energy that I just need to release. And if I keep it stagnant, if I'm not doing anything, if I don't at least journal down, if I don't at least talk or even take a walk outside, I know that I will just become more anxious because I am not taking any sort of action. And so for me, I also had to reflect and remember that just because it's a slower season, it doesn't mean that everything really has to stop. Some action still has to be taken and done, but it's more of like, how can I be intentional about it versus like taking action so that I can get to some place, like taking action so that I can get to the next moment already, like rushing to get somewhere versus like, yeah, I just want to live right now. And I know that living just requires me to participate in some way. Lastly, too, the slower seasons remind me that happiness is something that I can create and something that I can tap into. And it is something that I don't necessarily have to chase. Every day isn't always going to be glorious, and you can only experience so much joy when you also allow yourself to embrace and lean into the moments when it just feels so uncomfortable, moments when you're sad and admitting that that's where you're at. It's the same for being in the present. It's amazing to have goals. I think as humans, it's just normal to desire more. It's normal to want to work on things, and it's important to have those. But at the same time, it's so important to remember that you have to enjoy the journey just as much, if not more, than the destination, because you really will not be able to appreciate and enjoy your achievements and whatever you accomplish if you can't enjoy the process and the journey. Majority of life, majority of the things that we want is spent in the process. And that also brings me back to the idea that, yeah, like whenever we're dancing, when we're preparing for a performance, the performance is just like, what, 10% of the journey. 90% of that journey, you are spending it mostly in rehearsals, in training, and the performance is just a glimpse of it. And so how can you enjoy the performance itself when you cannot even enjoy the present moments of your journey to get there? For me, this is how I'm really approaching my slower seasons. And I am also just reminding myself that it's not all on me, that I can take action, but there is also a part of this journey where I have to learn how to surrender with how things unfold, surrender to how fast or how slow things will happen once I like put in the action, because it's not all on me. As much as there are so many things that we can control, there are also a lot of things that we cannot control. And life is just all about finding that balance. And I guess also just like being able to clock yourself in which end of the spectrum that you might be falling into. I know that for myself, I really like to control. Like that's how I've been programmed since I was a kid. And so I know that most of the time I just have to remind myself that yes, you can do everything that you want, but you can't rush through things and will things into existence, because it's not just about you either, that there are so many factors in this life that you just cannot comprehend, that you have to trust God, the universe, or whatever higher being you believe in, that you are where you're meant to be, and you will get there. You will get there, but the timing isn't up to you. It is also not up to you how things will unfold, and it's important to be able to manage your expectations when it comes to how your journey unfolds, and really just being open to how things come to fruition. Because yes, it's great to get specific, but there are so many beautiful things in life that are beyond comprehension that we don't even know we want until the universe or God actually puts that on our path. You know, like really having the room for surprises. I still struggle with the slower seasons, and I feel like this is going to be a lifelong journey, but I am also grateful that I get to experience this right now, because again, I know that this will not be forever. I know that in the freelance life, it's so normal to have our ups and downs, and that our slow seasons truly allow us to appreciate the seasons when we're so booked. And life is just as enjoyable too when we're not doing so much, when we're just being and probably just building. So grateful that I am here in this season right now because it truly is teaching me so much about life and so much about myself. And it's also allowing me to have a deeper relationship with myself and the world around me and the people around me. So yeah, I am thankful for this slow season, but yeah, it has truly been a struggle. I am really curious to hear how some of you, whether you also live the freelance life or not, how you guys manage to, go through the slower seasons or even embrace it, because I know that we all have our own ways. But I hope that with what I have shared in this episode, that some of them might resonate with you. But I truly am curious to hear about how you guys actually manage and go through the slower seasons of your life. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Matcha Mornings with Diane, and I hope to see you in the next one.